What up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Hi, I'm Doctor. And this week is awesome because we have Dani Farago with us. Dani is a badass lab technician. This is our first lab technician on our show.
Let's go.
I think it's cool because I don't get to talk to too many lab technicians. I talk to my lab technicians on the phone all the time, but I don't think I ever have too many one-on-one conversations with the lab technicians. So let's just kick this off. Welcome to the show, Dani.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
When you told me I was going to be the first technician, I was like, oh, this is an honor. I'm like representing a whole community. So
do you go by lab tech or lab technician? What do you prefer?
Lab, well, either or. It's kind of like
Either.
doc. Do you like being called doc? I don't know.
No, man. You call me Necky. No one ever calls me. Yeah.
Is doc offensive? Because, a long time ago, I was actually talking to someone and I called him Doc and we were friends. And he goes, how would you feel if I called you Tech? And right. So is Doc like a normal thing?
It's funny. The only people that ever call me Doc we have a large Filipino population in our city, and they only call me the my Filipino homies call me Doc. Like when they walk in the door, hi Doc. Everyone's like, hi Doc, and I'm like, oh, it's like a Filipino thing. Yeah, I guess so. That's cool.
And you're the cool Doc that just goes, call me Necky.
Yeah, call me Necky.
All I could think of is someone says Doc is Looney Tunes, whereas
yeah,
Bugs Bunny is like on like the chawing on the carrot. What up, Doc?
Yeah.
So Dani, tell the audience about you, where you're from, and how'd you get into being a lab tech?
Okay, so I'm from Toronto, Ontario, fellow Canadian. So I'm a second generation technician. So my dad's actually been in it, for like 35 plus years. Started as like a 19-year-old probably, and he's turning 60 next year. So he's been in it the whole time. My mom's a photographer, so it kind of made sense to go into what I did, right? Because around the time I was finishing high school, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I had like a few criteria. I knew I didn't want to go to university for a long time or college for a long time. I'm not the type to like learn 10 years consecutively. I wanted to get in there and work, make money, make something of myself quicker. So I knew I didn't want a lot of school. I knew I wanted it to be something artistic and something with my hands. So I kind of put all those together and got hairdresser. So that's kind of the direction that I was going for. But around grade 12, my dad decided to open his own lab. So he's been in it for so long, but only in the last 10 years, he decided to open up his own practice, his own lab. And he was like, why don't you just apply? And I wanted nothing to do with this profession at all. Because growing up, I never saw my dad. He was working, and lab techs are known for being lab rats, right? Like we live in the lab 12 plus hours a day, and that's seen as normal because we have usually a high quantity of work. So growing up, I never really saw my dad, and I wanted to stay very far away from this profession. But it kind of made sense. He was opening up his own thing. He needed employees, and I needed an employer. So it was the only thing I applied to. I didn't apply to any other colleges, other universities, other programs. And I said, if I'm going to get in there, that's kind of my path. And that's where I'm supposed to be. If I don't, hairdresser. 2 paths. So I ended up getting
Where did you go? Where'd you go?
George Brown in downtown Toronto.
Nice. Okay.
And I got lucky because they just opened the new campus like a couple years prior. So it was right on Lakeshore, glass. The whole thing was a huge glass building, beautiful sunsets and beautiful sunrises.
With your dad being in the same profession, did it ever occur to you that you'd be, what's the right word for it? Eternally compared to him for the rest of your life?
We're really different. So I wanted to go into the more artistic, like ceramist side. And my dad did kind of a little bit of everything as he was coming up. He started with dentures and cast partials, and then he became a ceramist. And then his thing is quality control. His thing is being a lab manager, which is what he's really, really good at. But he's a very well-rounded technician, whereas I just wanted to go into aesthetic dentistry. I wanted to go into ceramics. I wanted to go into more of the paintbrush and paint part of it. So we're different. I never thought I would be compared to him. I thought I would hopefully one day surpass him. And I'm still on that path. I'm still getting there. So it's awesome to have him as a mentor. It's very inspiring for sure, because he's been in it for so long. Last 10 years that I've been working with him, we've been through a lot. We started from the ground up and we're doing well. It's a family business. So my mom's in it too.
Wow. Like Dani, I'm going to throw it out there. Okay.
Please.
I've never met a young female lab technician.
Really?
I've never come across like a young female lab technician. It's such a male dominated industry.
It is a male dominated industry. You're 100% right. But I've seen a huge shift. So when I was in school, most of my class was female. A lot of it.
Really? What?
Yeah.
Oh, man,
I was
awesome.
surprised. We started with a class of 50 and people started dropping like flies, right? Because a lot of people that got in there didn't know what dental technology was. They kind of applied for like nursing, dental hygienist, and then the last one was dental technician. And then they got into that program. No clue what they were in for.
Right.
So they started dropping like flies. And actually, it was a lot of the men. So by the time we graduated, a large percentage of our class was female.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like we got hope for the future in dental lab technicians. Then that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I ended up graduating after 3 years, and then in certain provinces you have to have your RDT in order to have to operate a lab. So in Ontario, you have to have an RDT. I'm not sure what other provinces. I don't think it's all of them. I think it's maybe like 2 or 3 other ones. And so I applied for my RDT and I thankfully passed. It was a week-long practical exam and like a 3-hour-long written exam, give or shake, but they've changed it since. So they've made it a little bit more accessible to become a little bit easier to become an RDT. Because the requirements before, like even when they first started the whole RDT exam, the requirements were crazy. It was things that only really experienced technicians can do, like attachments. By the time I went, they've already kind of made it a little bit simpler, but still it was a 5-day long exam from morning till late, like till 4 o'clock or something, or 5 o'clock.
Wow. That puts everything we do to shame.
No. You were given 1 project of each. So they were looking that you're a well-rounded technician. So you got a cast partial project where you had to wax up on the model. You got a denture setup. You got crown and bridge. You had to do cast metal at the time. It wasn't, it was only a few years ago, but we weren't really doing a lot of digital then. So I graduated in 2017. And so we had to wax up and cast metal. We had to do porcelain, and we had to do an ortho appliance as well. So every kind of sect of dental technology we had to pass. And if you failed one of them, you failed the whole exam. And you had to come back the following year just to finish that portion of the exam.
What? So you have to wait a full year?
Yeah, you can't apply again until the year later, and you come back and do that one portion.
Wow.
And I think you can only fail like 3 times, and then there has to be some like continuing education after that. So it's a pretty intense exam. But thankfully I passed, and then I got into the lab and I hated it. I wanted nothing to do with it.
I just wrote this 5-day exam.
I went through 3 years of school. A year, it was an hour and a half subway bus commute downtown Toronto every single day, there and back, hour and a half. And then I got into the lab after all of this money invested in time, and I hated it. I wanted out. I was miserable like every day. But part of that is because I was really bad at it. Like, not really bad at it, but I was not passionate, not motivated, kind of just doing the 9 to 5, and then I'm out of there. Like, I was lucky if I stayed till 5. Now I'm lucky if I leave the lab before a 12-hour shift is over. Like, really, 12 hours my baseline now.
Oh man, Dani, you're gonna hate me for this story, but I remember a couple of years ago, I had just gotten into dental school, and I was golfing with actually, no, I was in my first year of dental school. I was my first year of dental school, and I was golfing with this guy who said, I had an old podcast talking about careers. So I was really interested in people, people's backgrounds and hearing where they came from. And I asked this one fellow, and I said, like, he was in a very niche part of dentistry. Like right now it's a very niche part. And I said, how did you get into this field? Because there's no one in your family in dentistry. There's nobody around you in dentistry. Like what made you just develop a passion for teeth? And he goes, I used to be a dental tech. And I was like, and my stupid little brain thought he meant tech support, like Bell Canada tech support. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, where did they have you posted? Like, were you virtual or were you like, and I remember I was just putting my foot further and further in my mouth. So for, first years or dental students that don't really interact with dental techs, what do dental techs do?
So we make prosthetics for people who are missing teeth. So I always say, like, when I explain to people who don't know, I say dentists heal teeth for the most part, or fix teeth. We make teeth, right? And then that's when my whole Instagram started. That's kind of, I would tell people, I would keep cutting it down. I would tell people what we do, and then I would be like, okay, here's the difference. And then over time, because what Neki was saying, it's very cultural. This career is almost very cultural. I've noticed that because in Canada, when I tell people I'm a dental technician, no idea. But if I were to tell the Russian community, 100% they know what's going on. If I were to tell the Korean community, 100% they know what's going on. So certain, and Japanese, and a lot of places in Europe actually, but it's kind of cultural. So I kind of kept cutting it down, and then I kind of ended up with tooth maker, and that's how my whole Instagram started. But I would be like, I'm a tooth maker, I make teeth. That's it. That's what I say. And there's different sects of it, right? So there's removable, like dentures, and then there's fixed. So I'm in crown and bridge. That's what we do. My family's lab only does crown and bridge. We only stick to fixed. So implants, crowns, veneers, and I'm focusing on aesthetic dentistry. So mostly just anteriors, veneers, single centrals, kind of the beauty, like what people see when you smile, right? That's kind of my bread and butter, even though people say the bread and butter of dental technology really is single molars, like, but that's changing with technology. That's changing. So I'm trying to stick to the artistic part of the profession.
And Dan,
which is
porcelain. I hear you. It's porcelain. I think you're underselling yourself big time here, because you call yourself tooth maker, but in dentistry, often the dentist gets to wear the cape. We are often seen as the heroes of the profession unjustly. And I'm sure 99% of dentists agree we are nothing without our amazing lab techs. However, dentists get all the glory behind it. And
you also get all the shit behind it too.
No,
when you get yelled at a patient, when you get yelled by a patient, I mean, you kind of protect us. You're that barrier. So we don't hear the good, but we also don't hear the bad. So if that makes you feel better, I mean.
No, it's just like being a dental technician is so incredibly difficult. And I can't even fully understand it, because I'm writing what I want done on a small piece of paper, and I'm like, 1-4 implant, crown, tight contact, go. And then miraculously 2.5 weeks later, I get this small little tiny jewelry box that fits perfectly. And I don't get to see the sweat and the tears that go on behind this. Can you kind of give us a quick rundown of like you get this model or this scan, and then you go with it, but there's so many components to it that are just that like dentists don't get to see. Can you give us like a quick rundown? We take an impression or we take a scan. What happens next?
So what happens next is, well, now we print models. A lot of the time before we get an impression, we'd make a stone model, we'd assess it. We'd assess if the prep was workable, and then we'd of course communicate that to the doctor. So
yeah, and if it was a Neki Jamal prep, the prep would be like a mountain.
Perfection.
and jagged. And you're like, does this guy even have a right hand? No, he's got two left hands.
Prep would be outside of the mouth. The prep would be on the tray. You would get the actual tooth. I want this back, please.
I mean, I've seen some stuff. I've only been around I've been in this career for like 10 years, but I've seen some stuff.
See, I feel like
you wouldn't surprise me.
Correct. You've seen some shit. That's where we're going. Dani on Instagram, when she was texting me, she's like, "Am I allowed to swear?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, you're allowed to swear, because I want to hear all the shit that you see on a daily basis."
Yeah, I see a lot of shit on a daily basis, but I also see a
There
lot of
we
good.
go. Now we're talking. Stop being political. This is good.
it gives me hope when I do work with doctors who communicate, who, when I assess their impression and their prep, I know the doctors that I work with, that I can call them, I can message them, I could be like, hey, you need to call in the patient, you need to re-prep, you need to fix it. I'll take videos, I'll take photos, I'll make sure they understand my side. So that's super important to me, because I've noticed over the years that techs are afraid to communicate to the doctor, because there's that negative stigma that, oh, the doctor's just going to find someone who they think is better. They're going to think that it's us, that we just can't do the work. Because I've seen and I've experienced some doctors that are like, if you don't do it, send it back and I'll have a lab who will. Those are rare. So, and yeah, I don't personally work with those doctors, and neither does my father, because we stick to people who are like-minded, because our goal, our mission is to help the patient. Yeah. And if the dentist is just in it for the money, he doesn't want to spend his chair time re-prepping, retaking an impression. Sometimes I tell them to buy new impression material, because I work with a lot of associates that kind of have to go off of the lab or of the impression material of the tools that dentist provides. And sometimes I'm like, you have to invest. I'm sorry, like, I understand your main dentist there is kind of older. He doesn't want to invest. You're going to have to do it. I can't work on this impression material, and I would recommend some that would be good for them. And I'm very open and honest, but polite. Like, I'm not going to shit on your impression just because, because we don't know what's going on your end, right? The saliva, the blood, the gagging, the crying, the anxiety, because patients are terrified of you, or some of them are. So there's that.
But Dani, at the end of the day, like, we're going to get a crown back and it's not going to fit. Mm-hmm. But what are we going to say? Are we going to take ownership for it? No,
remake.
It's all, but then now you wasted your time.
Oh yeah.
And it's all like, oh, the lab didn't do a good job, when really the impression was shit to begin with. You know what I mean? So like, how do you balance your time with that? I fully agree. You have to say, re-prep this crap.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I in our lab, what we do is we just refuse. We're like, we don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste material. We want to work with you. We want you to have the best outcome. It's better if you call in the patient. We explain it. We go step by step. We explain our side, because that's something that a lot of dentists don't get to see. They don't get, like you said, I don't talk to a lot of techs. You talk to your tech on the phone and you write a prescription, and that's our communication. So I make sure to be like to communicate, send photos, send videos, show where it's wrong, like Sharpie it. Like, I show them how to prep sometimes. And the doctors we work with are very like-minded, and they're very empathetic as well. So we're very lucky. We don't deal with anyone's crap. So we have to be honest. We have to be open. That's the only way to have any sort of relationship, any sort of friendship, and a long-lasting one, where there's no like suspicion, there's no blame game of like, the lab screwed up, no, the dentist screwed up. We don't need that. It's just a waste of everyone's time. So honesty is a huge thing that techs are afraid to tell their docs, and that docs sometimes in return don't tell their techs and are afraid to communicate. So going back to your original question, when I get that impression and I make that model, or I print that model, I assess it. Let's say everything is perfect. We can go forward. The next step would be to make a base. So that's when you kind of decide zirconia, Emax, PFM, or metal, or full metal. But we now try to stay away from that, because there's just so many aesthetic options on the market that we don't really want to work with PFM. We don't see a point unless it's absolutely necessary. There are instances that it's better to have a metal crown, depending on the patient's bite, depending on their grinding, their habits.
I don't know about you guys, but like the second I need a crown, I'm getting a gold crown. I've
Oh
always
yeah,
wanted,
gold
I
molder.
always wanted a gold crown.
Baller.
Akil,
No, thanks.
would you roll it? Would you? Oh, come
No.
on. I see. That's a Toronto lifestyle.
No, you
It's,
look like the guy from Home Alone, like the robber.
No way, man. That's a flex. Yeah, I got a gold crown on my belt.
What
That's
an
what
obscure
I'm
reference. No, the gold
Looney
molar, I
Tunes
love it.
and Home Alone. My
It's full of
entire childhood.
references. Uh-huh.
Hey, but like
Um,
it's wild because you mentioned this dynamic between like a lab tech and a dentist. And I was talking to a surgeon yesterday, and he made a comment where he kind of called me a doctor. And then I like looked back at him, I'm like, not a doctor, a dentist. And he kind of like laughed. He's like, shut up, Akil. Like, you know, like you're full of shit. And like it drove me nuts because like I know a lot of doctors and I know a lot of surgeons, and they don't call dentists doctors, right?
they are
Like
100% doctors.
they're like
really, I don't see that, man.
But it's like
I'm a
100%.
dentist. I don't want to be a doctor. I'm a
but
dentist.
see,
man.
it's like I hate it's even when like I talk to a hygienist like on the street and I'm like, what do you think of dentist? And they'll give me like the PC answer. And I know so many hygienists have so much beef with the dentist. Like as soon as the dentist back turned, you know, he thinks he knows more. Like, you know, I see more patients, I see more teeth. You know, I've been following this patient for 6 years, and he comes in for 2 minutes and he thinks he knows.
He doesn't even know
everything.
their name.
Yeah, he doesn't even know their name. But like I feel like that relationship exists. Well, for one, it has to exist for, you know, business purposes, because you need to have clients, you need to have them like you. But what's a sort of happy mid ground that you found that works in terms of like a good form of communication? Not a form of communication where, you know, you're kind of like punching the dentist in the head being like, you're an idiot, you should never gone to dental school, your mother should have never birthed you. But like also not, you know, you're so great, you're a dentist, you did 4 years of
right?
yeah, like what's the mid ground that you found that worked?
Just being genuine, I guess. I don't really think about that. I'm just kind of, I say what needs to be said. I'm very honest. And when I start working with the doctor, okay, because just going back to your point, dentists are 100% doctors. And I had this conversation not long ago with my coworker, where we were talking about, are they doctors? Yes, you guys are tooth doctors. Who else is going to do it? Who else is going to heal teeth but you guys? And what do doctors do? They heal patients. So first of all,
what do you think?
Second,
I'm still trying to figure out how the blood flows into the heart. And if I can't figure that out, I'm not a real doctor, man.
You don't tick all the boxes?
Nah, I'm good. I can count to 32 and we'll call it a day.
No, it's just about being genuine. To your question, there's kind of a lot behind it. I'm a little bit more fortunate than most, and I 100% realize this because my family has a lab, and I've been in it since day one. So before we had any employees, before we had anything, we just buying furniture from IKEA, because we were starting up with not a lot of money. So I now have a lab that's been operating for 10 years. My family has a successful business. So I have the luxury to be friends with my doctors. I have the luxury because I have a job, because I don't have to go door to door and advertise myself like, come work with my lab. My prices are cheaper. My prices are not cheaper, not by a long shot. But I don't have to convince anybody, which was a huge thing when my family opened their lab. We had to convince people to come work with us. We had to prove it. But with the help of Instagram, I made myself an online portfolio where you can see what I can do. You can see who I am and what I do before I even work with you. And there's been many docs that I was friends with them first. Like we were just chatting for a good year before they sent me my first case. So I have that backing, that wall that is my lab, that is my family's lab. So I don't have to be like, you're so great, you're so amazing, because I don't have to suck up to anyone. The people that I work with approach me. And I'm so fortunate for that, because for the last 2 years, I've been working so hard on promoting my work, on bettering my skills, on taking continuing education courses. The first of which was I trained in Japan for 4 weeks, for a 4-week course from it was like from 9 to 5 every single day for 4 weeks.
Wow.
So, and that's where a lot of my inspiration came from. But I had the luxury of going to that course, of missing work because of my lab. I had the luxury of becoming friends. So actually, Paresh was the one that introduced us. I'm a big fan of Paresh. And he's been supporting my work long before he sent me my first case. And he was the one that was always convincing me to start accepting and motivating me to accept cases for my own doctors, because I was only like, no, I'm just going to work for my dad. I'm just going to be small and keep my head down. And, and he was the one kind of motivating me to keep going and to do my own thing. But we had the luxury of just being contacts, of being friends, of just chatting about dentistry for a good year before he sent me my first case. And not a lot of people have that. So he was able to see who I was as a person, my passion, and a lot of people like him.
Yeah.
And that's where that whole like-minded thing comes from, what I was talking about, that the doctors that I work with are very like-minded, and we both have the same goal, and we both have the same passion and the same drive, and we're both motivated, disciplined, determined. So we kind of light each other's fires.
Yeah.
We keep each other motivated.
You gel together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And I have that luxury. So when you ask me, like, where's that happy medium, I'm not sure, because I have the luxury of being genuine, which a lot of techs don't. A lot of techs are a lot older, and they're sick of everything. They're like ready to retire.
Jaded.
So they can be assholes. They can be assholes, and they can be jaded.
But don't you find, Dani, there's such a race to the bottom in labs? Like, I find that there's two types of labs. There's the lab that you work in and that you're developing.
We call it a boutique.
The boutique. Okay. So we got Pace Dental's lab, right? Pace Dental in Toronto. My homie Derek Chung was on TV today, and it was cool. Super cool to see. That was super cool, right? So you got this boutique lab, and then you have
production.
90% of everyone else race to the bottom. I'm going to give you $139 zirconia crown. Screw you. I'm going to give it to you for $132, and it's a race to the bottom. I don't even know.
And it's so much worse in the States. I mean, in the States, It's even cheaper. It's like you can get $60 crowns.
Totally.
It's insane.
What's up with this? Like, how do you develop a boutique versus like join this production realm of let's get how many crowns and go by volume? Like, how are you able to differentiate yourself?
It's really hard, because like I was saying earlier, the real bread and butter of dental technology is single crowns, single molars, just pump them out, just full contour, zirconia, stain, get them out, So that's the real bread and butter. And I was always telling my family, like, I want to be boutique and I want to do these high-end crowns. But when it takes me, the amount of time it takes me to make one crown, the lab makes like 8.
Yeah.
Right. So really, they're making a lot more profit. Even if I charge double what they charge, let's say I charge double what a normal production lab costs. If I even triple, it's not enough to feed me. It's not enough for me to have employees. So a lot of boutique labs are very small, like 1 employee max, 2 employees is like pushing it. Usually it's very dedicated artists that wake up in the morning. They like eat, breathe, sleep, live dentistry. They wake up in the morning, they make their crowns, they do their steps. And at the end of the day, they might have like 2 crowns done, 3 crowns done. Yeah. And they're working alone. So if they get sick, they're screwed. If they get pregnant or have a family, they're screwed. You can't go on vacation. You can't take time off. You work weekends. And that's why I was saying earlier, my normal day is like a 12-hour day. That's normal. Because we're boutique, we're too small to have a lot of employees, but too big just to be like 1 or 2 people.
Right. So
we're always stuck in this loop of mostly part-time people helping us out, because it's like it's come and go, because we can have a really, really busy time where we need like 5 people, 6 people, and then we'll have a slow dead time where everyone's staying home basically, besides the owners. So how you differentiate, it's really what you want to do. I love the artistry part of it, but I also logically, as a business person, know I won't be able to live in Toronto, especially. Yeah. It's so expensive here. I can't live on 2 crowns a day. I will go hungry, and I will take on that the starving artist persona. I don't need it. So you kind of have to find a good balance. It really depends on how big you want to build it. I know for a fact I don't want to have like 25 employees. I'm just not the type of person to manage that many people. I'm okay with having 2 or 3 or working on my own. I'm very much a lone wolf. I don't really need a whole bunch of people. Where I was talking with my colleague about this, she's like, I would die if I had to work on my own. I need colleagues. I need like coworkers. I need to have that environment.
Yeah.
So it kind of really depends.
So, okay, do you know who Michael Appa is?
No, I don't.
So Dr. Appa's or Michael Appa is like one of, probably the bigger cosmetic dentists out of New York. I think he has an office in New York, Dubai, LA, and I think he's building one in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. Becky, do you know who he is?
Yeah, I've seen him on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. So his kind of claim to fame is he only does cosmetic work. And he treats like a ton of the celebrities in the US. And his claim to fame has always been he has an in-house lab. So as soon as you walk into his practice, which I've never been into, I've seen his Instagram, you see, the front desk, and then there's this big glass wall where they have the whole lab tech and it's all visible. And it's kind of like, I would equate it to a restaurant with an open kitchen, where you could see the whole process going down, and he's really marketed the hell out of it. Is there a meaningful difference? Do you think that's necessary? Like, I don't know. I've never done a cosmetic case. I'm still in dental school. But do you see that as something that, holds some value?
Super helpful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my doctors are out of province. So we have to rely on photo and video, right? So I have to rely on their lighting, their pictures, which are excellent. I'm very lucky with that. But when you have an in-house technician, you can have custom adjustments. And we actually have a dentist that's local to us who's huge on cosmetic dentistry, and he's very, very picky, and rightfully so. He's been in the industry for so long, and he's made a great name for himself. So every Friday, he comes to our lab. So we have an in-house dentist almost. He comes to our lab, and we have a chair and whatever. And he will book his anterior patients, his cosmetic patients on the Friday. So we can expect him around 2:00 every single Friday. Even if the tiniest adjustment is needed, he will do it. And he'll drive over with his patient. We'll take pictures. We'll talk about it. I'll make some custom adjustments wherever is needed, whether it's shape, color, whatever it is. And we can bake it right there. And the patient can go home with a perfect smile, not good enough, not close enough, based on the pictures and the video that we got, or the words. Sometimes we don't get pictures. There's lots of doctors that don't even send pictures for anterior cases. Just like they don't care.
How frustrating is that? Because you're literally, you just have a model. They could just be green model. Teeth, or they could be like, I don't understand how you're able to even match anything.
We forget also when we just have a model, and a lot of the time we'll get a prescription that says, "Hi, make crown, thank you."
At least they said thank you.
Yeah, they're polite. They're polite. So we forget when we have just a piece of paper and a model, we sometimes forget that there's a person behind it. There's a human being behind it. When we get pictures, something new that I've been getting too, videos. So they'll take a dentist will take a video of the patient talking if we're doing like 6 anteriors. So I can see how his or her lips move, their jaw movements. I can kind of see how much incisal edge they show, how big their smile is, how gummy their smile is, how many like posterior teeth they show if they have like a huge smile. And they just make the patient talk so I can see. And then I can that's been really interesting. That's kind of new. I haven't gotten that before.
I feel like that was introduced during this whole like Christian Coachman digital smile design thing that everyone's taking videos of people talking to. So that is really interesting.
Who?
so Kristen Coachman, he developed this idea called digital smile design, and it's been around for a long time. He's just the poster boy that made it popular, and it's just making your smile design fit in your face. It's not just your teeth. So it's a facially driven design of your smile, not just a mouth driven design. Do you know what I mean? Like having your smile fit in your face, not just fit on your teeth. And so it's you know, he's made millions with it, but that's where the whole video thing I think came from, because we would take video of people talking, send it to the lab, and he kind of reinforced that idea. And I totally agree that makes such a huge difference. Dani,
that's going back to the communication too, like
absolutely
getting that video, getting that photo. That's a huge form of communication that we get that really makes a difference, that we can see that there's a patient, there's a person behind this model, not just, hey, make a zirconia crown, thank you. It's it's a huge part of it.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, after just talking, I'm like, maybe I should be sending my lab more. But I find the hardest thing to convey is the single central. And I want to hear from your point of view, two things. One, like, we'll do a single central implant. Okay, implant crown, and we'll send it to you. We'll send a bunch of pictures. It comes back, it's not quite perfect. We live on different sides of the country. I'll send it back to you, send it back. It's not quite perfect. And all these costs start adding up, like purelator costs and time and frustration on both of our ends. Cause I'm saying, hey, I want this just a little bit darker. You know, as a dentist, we just say add more gray. And then as the lab tech, I'm sure you've heard of this, as a lab tech, you're like, what the hell does that mean? And you're looking at the picture and you're like, it looks good on the picture, but in the mouth, it doesn't. What do you do when you're trying to match the hardest thing in dentistry, that one front tooth? Like, tell us about the frustrations behind all this. Like, how can we be better communicators with each other?
So going back to the whole communication thing, what you were saying when you were talking, and you can see that what teeth shape goes with the face, that goes back to also communication, where you tell me their gender, you tell me their like, if you show me a photo or video, I can see their face shape, I can see how much incisal edge they show. All of that plays into it. When it comes to the single central, it's I want to specialize in it, because that's a niche that needs to be filled, but it's a terrifying niche to fill. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah,
it's incredibly difficult. I love doing like canine to canine. That's like the best, because you can just make your own. You can make the tooth shape based on the patient's face, which the dentist would have to communicate, and you can make the size and the angles and everything, all depending on the bone structure, which is something we learned in school. But when it comes to single central, you're put into a box, where you have no creativity. You have no or artistic kind of say in it. You don't choose the shape. You don't choose the length. You don't choose anything. It's just match the other side. And we have to rely on pictures and videos that are sent. And we don't know the kind of lighting in your office. We don't know if our phones or computers are balanced, their colors are balanced. So we don't know if
you don't know if the pictures are balanced.
Right. A great thing that works for me, what I ask for is, I need to calibrate my eyes. So when you take a picture, don't just take a picture with a single shade guide, be like AI3. Give me like 2 more close ones. Give me like an A3, an A2, an A4, whatever, or like a B2. Put them side by side. Give me like 3 or 4 colors. Put them side by side and take a picture. That way I can calibrate my eyes, because what seemed like A2 really is A3. And you can also put a grayscale filter over it. So when you make it black and white, that's what determines the value. You can see the value of the crown. So it could be a bright A2, or it could be a dull kind of gray A2. So that's when dentists say add more gray, what they mean is make it more low value, right? Or add more white means higher value. So
I love
what
how
I've noticed,
you've already figured out the language.
Like, that's
ours is add more gray, and you're like, decrease the value. Okay.
It's a translation from stupid to smart.
Yeah, because we're the doctors, right? Right,
no,
Dani?
you know what?
I'm still going to challenge you on that.
There's been some dentists that have communicated to me where I was like, what the hell are you talking about? one of the dentists I work with, I love working with him. And then the first night guard he sent me, he was like, make it low profile. I was like, what does that mean? He goes, thin. I'm like, thank you. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
He goes, when I send you a crown, I'm going to tell you to make them white.
Yeah.
So language is a huge thing, but no, value is something we learn. So as ceramists, as artists, we don't just learn hue. We don't just learn like the color. We learn the brightness of that color. So it could be a bright red or it could be a dull, dark red, right? Same thing with like navy blue or sky blue. Like there's a difference in value, and that determines the results, the outcome. Because I could make a crown A2, but if the patient has a low value A2 and it's more of a grayish A2, it's not going to match. It's going to be like a sore thumb.
Oh, and you can spot it from a mile away, but it's so close and it's hard to, I love this. Yeah.
The color is there. It's the value that's changing it. So grayscale really works. So when you send me 3 or 4 shade guides, like A1, A2, A3, A4, let's just say, make it easy, side by side, and take a picture of it. What really helps is also polarized filters.
Yeah.
Because that takes off that glare and I can see the true hue. And the grayscale filter, it's just on my phone, just hit edit, go to black and white or mono or whatever it is. And that will show me the value. So the crown, even though the closest hue is A3, the value might be more of an A2. So you want to order a cord that's lower value, that's a different value that matches the A2 value. Right. So that actually determines it. Like it looks like A3, it's actually A2 by value. Just add a little bit of hue, add a little bit of color.
I know this isn't supposed to be a clinical podcast, but I'm learning so much right now.
It's something that I've picked up over time though, because it's I used to get so frustrated because that dentist that comes every Friday, he's very patient with me. I mean, he's been working with my dad for many, many years. Like when my dad was a manager at different labs, he was there with my dad. And then as my dad opened his own place, he kind of followed him out. And so he's very patient with me. So I'm lucky because his son just became a dentist. So he understands my dad because his daughter just became a technician. Like, well, not just 10 years in. Yeah. And so he's very patient with me. He comes every Friday and he lets me experiment on him. And I'm also lucky with him. He's the type of doctor that has confidence and experience. So dentists kind of go through what and techs as well. This applies to us both, where we go through kind of like stages where the last stage you want to be at is confident and experienced. But then there's also like dentists that are right out of school. I went way off topic, but I'm gonna get back to my topic. When dentists come right out of school, for example, they're confident but inexperienced. Yeah. Confident but inexperienced, right? So they really, really heavily rely on their technician. That's what we're there for. We're there to guide you. We're there to tell you that your prep sucks. We're there to kind of, encourage you, but also teach you. That's
that Dunning-Kruger effect I find with new grads a kill. Wink, wink, a kill, just so you know, because you don't know what you don't know, and you think you learned it all in school, and you can just
I know I don't know anything.
On, you get a white coat, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm the dentist, and
because you survived dental school. Like I understand, right? I get it. When you start, you're overly confident, but you're not experienced, right? And then there comes a time, and this again applies to to technicians, where you become experienced, but you lose confidence. You almost get like this imposter syndrome. So they get this imposter syndrome. And I actually went through that recently, where I've gained so much experience and through continuing education that I kind of started feeling imposter syndrome as well. Then you kind of get to that last stage where it's confident and experienced. And this dentist is that. So.
But Dani, I think that's 100% normal though. Cause like that's the exact same staircase or experience as a dentist. Is you start out overly confident and then you realize, oh shit, I actually don't know anything, and then you take out all these courses and you minimize yourself because you're like, because there's this whole world I don't know, and now I'm realizing it, and then slowly you build it back up. And I think it's cool that we're both going through the exact same thing.
Are you getting that?
Oh, totally. And it was funny because when I first started teaching, I was like, okay, I know what I'm talking about. Learn from me. And then the more I started teaching, the more I started reading, I was like, oh shit, there's so much more that I don't know. And then all of a sudden got quiet.
Right.
And that's not usually me to be quiet, but then like,
Mhm.
I need to learn more if I want to continue teaching. And then that's what kicked my ass into the next gear. And it's like, I'm going to read every single thing out there so I
Yep.
don't get caught. Right. And then you're like, well, then who the hell am I? Like, who
Yep.
am I to teach someone else or to be even taking out wisdom teeth all day if I don't know this subject? And it's a cycle. And I think it's cool that you go through it as well.
Yeah, technicians go through the same thing. We
Yeah.
get out of school thinking we know everything, thinking we're hot shit, and we're super inexperienced, but we're super confident and motivated and passionate. And then later, as we get better, and that's what I had, where when I finished school, I had no experience, but I had all the confidence in the world, but I just wasn't motivated and excited about this profession. As I started taking continuing education courses and realized, oh my God, there's these amazing technicians out there that I follow on Instagram. I take their courses. I learn from them. I don't know shit. Oh my God, I'm a baby. I have
Yeah.
so much more to learn.
Cougar.
I've been in this for 10 years and
Yeah.
I just keep learning. And I know dentists go through that. So then you take a step back and you get more experience, but you somehow lose confidence where you're like, I'm an imposter. I know nothing. I thought I knew everything, but I don't know anything.
No, because you now know what you don't know.
Right. And it bothers you.
Yeah. But
you know,
hey,
there's a whole world out there.
like I'm listening to, I was just before, we ran off on the Dunning-Kruger effect. You said something that caught my attention, which was how you do shade selection. It's literally just dentists sitting there sending you like Snapchats, being like, yo, like, replicate this, right? And it's like,
pick.
does it ever
Sorry.
does it ever occur to you that because like we've been drawing a lot of comparisons to medicine, sometimes how archaic our profession really is. Like you think of an orthopedic surgeon doing a replacement, like a joint replacement. There's like so many things, like these incredible technologies that have been developed, like documentaries made on it, and then it's just like us here with like an Instagram filter on against a tooth, and we're like, yeah, this should be good enough. Like, does that ever drive you nuts, or is that something that you've just learned to live with?
No, because it's just it's a small part of it, right? And the reason we're so obsessed with what we do is because there's so much to learn. Because once I opened my eyes and realized, like, wow, there's a whole world out there that I don't know, and there's so much left to learn. Like, again, my dad's been in it for 30 plus years, and he's still learning every single day, and new things keep coming up, right? So that whole, like, you just put a filter on it, it's a helpful tool, but it's such a small part of it. That what orthopedic surgeons know, like the intricacy of what they know, we as techs, we as dentists, we're so obsessed with our profession. We know so much about it, and yet we know nothing. And we just keep learning, and we just keep going. And just, how do I answer your question?
But like with the importance of dentistry,
Yeah.
you'd think that there would be just like a tool that you could just touch the tooth with, and it's kind of like that thing
there
you use on
is.
Photoshop, and it's like, but it's like you would think it's ubiquitous, right? It's not. Still some dentists, you're like, put a polarized filter, and they're like using their like Oakley sunglasses, and they're like, click, right?
Well, again, it goes back to being like-minded, right? So the dentists that really care, that really get it, that want the best results, that care about their patients, they're the ones that are investing in polarized filters, in camera equipment, in lenses, in amazing, like, just like camera bodies. They're the ones investing in things like Matisse and eLab and OptiShade and all of these other programs that are like a tool in your tool belt. But then there's other dentists, like the complete polar opposite, that I don't even get a picture for an interior tooth. I sometimes, or in my lab, we sometimes make single centrals with no picture, just A2. Those aren't all of them. I'm not generalizing, but there are dentists that just don't care. They just do their job and they go home. It's a job. But then there's some dentists that it's a career or it's a lifestyle.
We speak about that job versus career, man. I totally hear you. Yeah.
And that goes for technicians as well. So I was a while ago talking to one of my dentists, and when we first started working together, he was saying that he's sick and tired of having to, because he's in another province. I said, why not work with the people in your province? He says, I do on normal everyday cases, but when it comes to interior aesthetics, I sometimes have to like beg them to take it on, because it's not the bread and butter, because it takes a lot more time and it takes a lot more energy. I almost have to beg them to take difficult or interesting cases, right? Because they don't want to, they don't care, they're older, or they just, it's just a job. Just bang out teeth. And that's where the production lab comes in. Just bang out teeth and go home. And then there are those who are super like-minded and super, it's like a lifestyle for them. Dentistry is a lifestyle, Monday through Sunday. It's all we think about. And then those are the people that invest in continuing education and invest in the tools in your tool belt.
So Dani, when you, like you see that from a dentist point of view, like you want us to take better pictures and you want us to communicate better with you. But then on your side of things, from the lab's point of view, the amount of technology that has changed in even the last 10 years alone has been mind-blowing. How does a lab maintain a low, even medium price point while investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in new milling machines and ceramics and 3D printing and yada yada? The list can go on. And every dental trade show, there's a new milling machine comes out, and a 10-axis miller and a new type of material. And like, how do you keep up and still make a profit?
Right. A lot of labs don't. I've been hearing here in Toronto, left and right, labs have been closing down, or huge corporations have been buying them out and either closing them down or making them kind of like a part of their empire. Yeah. So we, in our lab, we don't mill in-house. We send it out because there's a milling center that's like a 10-minute drive from us. It's super convenient. It's a lot more expensive than if you were to mill yourself. So the startup is super expensive. The milling machines, the printing machines, the resins, like we just got printing in-house, right? So it will make our self-cost cheaper, but the investment, it's like tens of thousands of dollars into these machines, into the programs, into a lot of the time the yearly subscriptions,
which is crap, like EvoCAD and or ExoCAD.
ExoCAD.
Yeah,
no, ExoCAD doesn't. ExoCAD doesn't have. I believe it doesn't have a yearly subscription. I could be wrong. But 3Shape definitely does.
Yeah, 3Shape. Like all this adds up. Like how do you maintain these costs and still deliver like a cost-effective solution? You know what I mean?
Hard to say. It's volume, and it's also not being part of the race to the bottom. It's part of not allowing $120 or $130 crowns, because a lot of the time what happens is if someone's offering those kinds of crowns, those are like very often not Health Canada approved. Those are like Chinese off market. It could be because you can't otherwise.
No. I've heard of this though. Like I've heard of labs, you send them a scan and they'll send it to China and they'll have a lab make a crown there and you get it in like 6 days, and they probably cost them $9 to make, and then they'll charge you 120. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In Canada, I'm pretty sure that the exporting is illegal, but there's ways around it that people still screw with. So in the US, I believe, I'm not in the US, but I believe from what I've heard that it's legal to send it out to get it milled in other countries, or to even get pucks made in other countries and sent here. In Canada, I believe it's not legal, but there are ways around it. Like there are people who send it to like the US and then from the US send it to China. It's a whole thing, but that goes back to dentists who don't care. And who don't care about their patients, who don't send the central photos. And what they do is they send it to a cheap lab, who in turn sends it to a cheap, or they use cheap materials, because it's hard to maintain a profit using like real implant parts, real materials.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It's incredibly expensive. So people use off market, not black market, but things that aren't approved.
Totally.
Yeah.
It just makes it sound so dramatic.
You said something really interesting about like the consolidation of dental labs, and obviously we're seeing that huge amount of consolidation, in dental practices. I think Dental Corp just released their 2022 earnings, and they're quite interesting. It's like 1.2 billion in revenue or production, which is insane. But
Wow.
like, can you give us a general overview of what's going on in the lab space in terms of consolidation?
It's labs that aren't able, from what I've seen, to keep up with the constant changes, the machinery, the constant, like, you just buy a milling machine and now they're like, oh, we can print stuff now. We can print crowns, you don't have to mill them anymore. So all of that, it's just such a wasted investment that people who can't keep up, people who don't fill a niche, they get left behind. That's why I'm seeing aesthetic dentistry as my future. Because even though right now molars are the bread and butter of dentistry, or of dental technology, the quick and get it out, that could change. Dentists are investing in their own machinery. They're milling their own crowns. So my worry is that in the next decade, that's going to disappear for the most part. Things like implants, veneers, single centrals, those are the things that technicians will be needed for, because there's a lack of that education for dentists. Right. Dentists, a lot of them, they get their assistants to take courses on how to stain molars, like using products like Mio, liquid ceramic, because it's much, much easier to use than the powder ceramic is. There isn't as much of a technique to it, and it's easier to learn. So I feel that labs who are relying heavily on single molars, they have to like change up their game, right? The older generation, again, is sticking to it because it's like they're going to retire soon. But then as time goes on, as machinery changes and as dentists change as well, because I've noticed a lot of technicians now teaching assistants or teaching dentists. Dentists are taking courses now because they're like, oh, I have a dentist as well who has a CEREC, and in his free time, he sits, he designs, he mills, he that's it. Like, to him, that's good enough. And that's fine, right? But I feel like labs need to make a shift. And there is also that option, what we were talking about before, of having an in-house technician. That's a huge thing, where really, really good, high quality, high aesthetic technicians are like unicorns now. And dentists are realizing that, and they're like, I need this unicorn to be part of my team. Totally. So they'll buy a technician. They'll adopt a technician. They'll offer them a huge salary to come and live in their state, in their province, or wherever it is that you are. And then they have that in-house lab that can help with single central matching. We were talking about before, how you match a single central. You don't. You have to have an experienced and confident doc, the one that's right at the end of that lineup that we were talking about, nearby. You have to have an experienced technician with an experienced doctor to be able to be up close and personal, unless you have those tools, that you've mastered those tools of like eLab and Matisse, the kinds that it takes time. You have to take courses, but it's a huge like a really good tool to have. And actually, I'm remembering now, I took one course. It was a master technician. He's amazing at what he does. His eyes are just God sent. And there was someone at that course that was like, master, like, why, he's Japanese, just sensei, the whole thing. He goes, master, why don't you use tools like eLab? And he goes, my eyes are eLab. So humbling. Oh my God, because we're relying so heavily on technology now, but the older technicians, they didn't have that. They couldn't even rely on photos before that was around. Like, it was, you had to have that communication. You had to be there. You had to help. Like, aesthetics have really, really improved, but it's good to have an in-house technician. It's like the best option.
The issue with that, though, is, I see your point, and I fully agree. If I'm getting, if I knock out my dog knocks out my central, like, I want you to do it. Like, I don't want it sent to, overseas, and then it come back and, it's the wrong hue or the wrong value. I forget which one. But,
wrong value.
But I could see the business case for it, because it's, while you're incredible and talented, and, like I said, I would want you to work on my teeth, it's not like scalable, right? And like when you look at the way a lot of the private equity investors that are investing in dentistry want to see a return. They want to see it quickly, reliably, and, you know, not subjective, right? They kind of want to know what to expect. But I wonder, because like I said, I was just looking at the numbers. So it was actually at 1.2 billion was Dental Corp's 2022 earnings, which is a 219 million increase from 2021. So
really?
it's 21% increase. But like, if you look at how the consolidation's happening in, you know, your world and the lab world, are labs generally profitable? Because these, you know, conglomerates only really operate in, you know, hyper profitable, hyper stable states. And right now you're saying there's a lot of, you know, turnover, there's a lot of, you know, labs, you know, going for the race to the bottom. So like, what do you see? What do you see from the inside that investors may see from the outside?
How do I say this? In Canada, it's a little bit easier. We have it easier. In the US, I've noticed a much, much faster and bigger, and the market there is just incredible. Like you were saying, Nikki, you don't really see a lot of Canadians like representing. That's because the Canadian side is a little bit more stable, where there isn't that huge race to the bottom. We still have like guides. Maybe that's where the RDT comes in, the college, and maybe they're, you know, helping out a little bit with keeping costs kind of not $69 a crown. And also the fact that we can't really export, that also kind of helps the market. But what your question was, are they profitable? It kind of depends. I would kind of say it's not far from like a restaurant. Restaurants are generally not incredibly profitable unless they're incredibly popular.
Interesting.
Like that's kind of my opinion on it. I could be completely wrong, but in my opinion, buying produce, for example, for restaurants is very expensive and it expires, and not everyone's going to order that dish, and it goes bad, and you have to have specials, and then you have customers that want a free meal because it was too hot or too cold or too spicy, and there's people who are trying to knock you down. They were trying, you know, you have to put a lot into it. But you also see those restaurants that are incredibly successful, that are like in an amazing location, that have lots of clientele, that have big clout on Instagram, that have a big following, that have been around for many, many years. In the same way, labs, there's so much overhead that you need to have quantity, or you need to have less overhead, because like hiring people is very expensive.
Yeah.
Materials is very expensive. We work with Ivoclar in our lab. We have since the beginning for the last 10 years. And like one bottle, like 100 grams of just one color of porcelain, it's like $400 Canadian for one bottle of porcelain. Like a big one, 100 grams. It's going to last you a lot of crowns. Like you're going to make your money back, right? But that's one color. That's one shade. That's not even like the A series. That's
so
A1.
High setup costs.
Right. Yeah. You can't just work with A1. You got to go with A2 and A3 and A4. Like, you know, you got to buy everything. The stains, the equipment, the machinery, the upgrades, really, really high startup costs. That's why when we started our lab, I think we started on $25,000, and we had like IKEA furniture only. We still do. It's still there. It's working. It's working for us, but we had to get like IKEA furniture. We couldn't get the fancy stuff. We couldn't get like anything that's marketed as medical, super expensive. Totally. IKEA,
especially dental,
like $50.
Yeah. Dental cabinets, right? Dental cabinets.
Yeah.
Dental tables, cabinets. It's so expensive, right?
Oh,
so IKEA, Kijiji, like we got a lot of our equipment secondhand. My furnace is like 10 years old.
That's from Kijiji. Mm-hmm. Those books are not from Kijiji. They're from Amazon. That plant is from Facebook Marketplace. That plant is from Facebook Marketplace.
I'm from Facebook States? Marketplace.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Oh, no, it's not.
I think they have Craigslist. Yeah. So Kijiji is the Canadian Craigslist, I'm pretty sure.
No. Hey, Dani, I got a question. Mm-hmm. Do you ever envision a time in the future where, because you said something earlier that really intrigued me. do you ever envision a time when patients will actually seek out the lab tech?
Oh, I'm seeing that now.
They realize
Yeah.
that it's not the dentist, it's the lab tech who's going to
100%. I'm seeing that now, and I'm seeing that with Instagram. So Instagram has been huge help, because like we were talking about, it's a cultural thing, but also people just generally rely on their family doctor or their family dentist. Yeah, my mom has been going to him for 30 years. He's a great dentist, so obviously he's going to make my teeth look beautiful. No, you have to specialize. Like if you were go to get a certain tattoo, you wouldn't go to like an illustrative tattoo artist, you know, that does traditional or whatever tattoos to get something that's realistic. You have to go to the person who knows what they're doing and who specializes in it. You can't ask someone to do something they can't do. Just because your dentist is amazing doesn't mean you're going to have good crowns in the end. So what I've noticed with Instagram, and actually this was way before I started my page, I started about 2 years ago now. I noticed that when I was looking for a hairdresser, I didn't go online and look at the shops or the salons. I went on Instagram and typed in hairdresser Toronto. And then I would look at their profile and I would see if their style matched what I was looking for, or if they were able to do what I like. Same thing when I got my tattoo sleeve. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
that's sweet. I was going to comment on it.
So when I was getting my tattoos, I knew what style I wanted. So I went not on Google, like I looked at Google reviews and stuff that everyone does, but I didn't go on Google looking for a shop. I went on Instagram and typed in tattoo artist Toronto. And I started thinking, if I'm doing that, if I'm seeking out the person, I'm not seeking out the company, I'm not seeking out the business, I'm seeking out the person. I want to work with this artist. I want to work with this hairdresser. Even with restaurants, I saw that. Like they weren't seeking out the restaurant, they were seeking out the chef. A lot of restaurants started buying out amazing chefs that were well known, and people would flock to their restaurant because they knew the chef was there. Similar, I was like, why can't we do that with dentistry? Why can't we do that with dental technology? Why can't we go on Instagram and show a portfolio, just like I did with my tattoo artist or with my hairdresser? Make a portfolio so that I can show what I'm capable of doing, and that people would want to work with me, not with my company, not with my lab, not with even my boss, but with me. And that's kind of, in a sense, adding value to who you are as a professional. So I started showing and showcasing, and I started this almost like a diary, almost like one day I'm going to look back and laugh at the crowns I used to make that I thought were good, that now I don't laugh, I cringe. It's hard to look at. I look back at my old techniques. I look back because a lot of it was also experimentation. And I'm not self-taught, but at the same time, a lot of it was experimenting, seeing what works in my own free time. And I started Instagram as kind of like also photography. I got really into it. And I wanted to just see my progression. I wanted one day to look back and scroll through my Instagram and be like, damn, like I used to think I was good. Like when you look back at old pictures of you in high school when you thought you were fat and that was like the skinniest you'll ever be.
So I don't think Nike and I could say that.
No, man, we got skinny later on in life.
So it's the same. Like I'm looking back and I'm like, damn, like that's what I used to think was good. Like that's what I used to do. So I had that mentality 2 years ago. I'm like, I want to laugh at myself in a few years, and now I am. And I'm sure 2 years from now, I'm going to look back at today and cringe and laugh as well. And so I was like, why not? Like, why don't I just start posting? And the weird thing is, this was around COVID. This was like maybe a few months into COVID, or like, you know, that I started doing this. And a lot of people had the same idea as me. So a lot of my now Instagram friends that I talk to on a daily basis, they all started around COVID. They're all like, there's the OGs that started like way before, and you know, they had this idea way before the rest of us. But a lot of us during COVID were like, we're bored, nothing better to do, might as well try to be artsy, try to take some photos, try to enhance some sort of skill, since we're sitting at home doing nothing anyway.
Copy genius.
And so, and then we started doing that, and I've noticed a huge community like growing in the last 2 years. Huge, like people follow like a lot of following, a lot of communication. A lot of groups have opened up, Facebook groups, Instagram groups. Like I've just noticed this community growing, and people just advertising themselves, their skills, the thing that their hands can do. Like it's been such a game changer. It's also like it has its negatives, right? It's a huge ego booster.
I was going to say the other one. I was going to say people tear you down.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Gary Vee fan, and he's always saying that don't listen to the cheering, but also don't listen to the booing, because both will screw you up.
Neki V says that too.
Yeah. Dr. T.I. If you live for the cheers, you die by the booze.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a question for the two of you, actually. I've always had this sentiment of sort of what Neki alluded to, which is, if I'm going to go get, and I'm a huge hypocrite because you mentioned this whole tattoo thing, and I got a tattoo in LA only because it was on the way to the airport. So I didn't even look at the artist. I'm like, I called them. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there in 30 minutes. Like my Uber is on its way. And they're like, okay.
Spontaneous tattoos are great too.
Cleopatra and Santa Monica, you guys are the best. But in a dental case where it's, far more, complex, and it's there's a lot of like artistry behind there. I'm just gonna get shit from all tattoo artists now, but there's a ton of artistry behind it, and I would personally want my teeth to be perfect, even if I don't want my tattoo to be perfect. I want my teeth to be perfect. I wonder, like, from both of your perspectives, and I kind of want you guys to, Neki and Dani, I want you guys to say, I'm going to count you down at the same time, what percentage of a good cosmetic case is actually the dentist versus what percentage of the cosmetic case is actually the lab tech? Because I have my theory, and Dani, I don't want you to be, nice. I want you to give us the honest truth. Neki, I know you're going to, but actually in the other way, Neki, don't undervalue dentistry. Like your honest, genuine answer of what you think a dentist does. Maybe we'll just stick to the dentist involvement. Okay.
Well, what are we doing? Like a crown, veneers? Like what's the case?
Like just say like a general, like,
a crown.
Like, no, maybe not a crown. Maybe like a veneer. What do you think?
Like a veneer case. Like
a veneer case, like an anterior veneer.
8 upper veneers.
Yeah. 8 upper veneers. What percentage does the dentist do from 0 to 100%? So both of you are going to say the dentist's involvement at the same time.
Give me a sec to think about it.
I will call you both out. I promise you. All right.
Let me think about it. So the dentist's involvement in a veneer case.
So if you think it's 95%, say 95. If you think it's 2%, say 2. All right. Okay. I'm going to count you out. Tip of your tongue. 3, 2, 1.
50.
15.
15?
You were slow.
15.
Yeah, well, you had to process it.
No, 15.
I'm going to give you a lot more credit. 50. Like,
no, because if you make A1 right across the board, you're in charge of shape, you're in charge of size, you're in charge of translucency, you're in charge of value, hue. Everything lands in your realm. We prep. All we're concerned about is giving you enough space for our lab techs to shine.
And don't hit the ball.
That's why. Yeah. But that's why I think people should be searching for lab techs, not dentists.
So why do you think that?
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because like there's no celebrity lab tech, but there's celebrity dentist. There's no aesthetic lab techs, but there's aesthetic dentists. So why do you think that is?
There should be aesthetic lab techs like that. I think that's what you are, Dani. Like this is like you're leading this whole new trend. And I'm sure in the next 15 years, people are going to be searching for lab techs, not dentists, because dentists have done a good job advertising for themselves. But I think the rise of the lab tech is coming.
I 100% agree with you. I'm going to give you more credit. I think it's still a 50-50 share.
Why?
When it comes to the actual fabrication of the crowns, it's 100. Like we do 100% of the work, the fabrication of the legitimate crowns. But when we're talking about a case from start to finish, from you seeing the patient to you cementing the veneers in, you should give yourself a little bit more credit. We have time. We work with a model. So we're able to make mistakes. There's been many times where I've made holes through crowns. Okay. And I had to start over. Or that I broke models. I had to start over. I even had to ask for a new impression before, right? Because of my own mess ups. So you guys see the patient. You guys talk to the patient. A lot of techs can't do that. I mean, just recently I had a patient that was absolute bonkers, absolute clown shoes, right? So I was like, if this is even 1% of what this dentist deals with, like, I don't want to deal with it. You guys have you take a huge burden off of us.
I take a huge burden in dental school doing all my cosmetic cases. Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
You guys take a huge burden. You take on the personality, you take on the fear, the confusion, the indecisiveness. The whole process is very emotional, right, for the patient. You guys take a lot of those emotions. And when this patient came, she was very like, lack of a better word, she was very anal. She had to be in control of absolutely every detail. And that's when I usually realize like it goes wrong, that when you have way too much involvement and way too much control, when techs allow patients to have all the control that come to the lab that dictate how to do our job, that's when we do poorly. And I think that goes for like any sort of profession. Like there should not be micromanaging. But you speak to the patient. You have to also convince them of our prices, right? Because aesthetic ceramists, aesthetic technicians, there are such thing, and they've been around for a while. It's just now being more of a well-known term. And I know there will be celebrity technicians. There are in our field. We know who the celebrity technicians are in our field, but patients don't. So that's coming. I agree with what Neki was saying, that it's like the time of the lab tech is coming because of the information that patients have now with Instagram, with Facebook, with reviews, with online. Like we're doing a better job at marketing ourselves, where before we were like gargoyles. Like we just sit in our lab.
In the basement. Yeah, totally.
Like you can see, okay, this is a podcast, but you guys can see how white I am. I do not get any like vitamin D whatsoever. Look at this, I'm translucent. Okay. We don't go outside. We stay in our little niche. And actually I was speaking to Paresh about where he's always going to like study clubs and study groups, and dentists actually go and like interact and like go and learn and go to study clubs. And I was telling him, I'm like, man, techs should have that. Tech should have study groups and study clubs. And then I contradicted myself. I'm like, no, we wouldn't go. Not a single tech would show up. We wouldn't leave the lab.
Because dentists have way less responsibility. I agree. We have to take on the patient, and we're in charge of cementation. Okay, I'll change my answer. 25%, because we're in charge of cementation.
I still think that's low.
No, we're
not.
Low. No, absolutely not. Because dental techs, lab techs, will determine how great that smile is at the end of the day.
Your prep and your impression will determine how great that fit is.
I don't think
it has anything to do with the prep or the impression. I think the dentist's role is exactly what you said, Dani. It's setting expectations, patient management, case selection. This is coming from a guy who's done zero of anything. So to be clear, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and I have an opinion on it, but I feel like isn't that not a big part? Like, huge. You know, if you tell a patient, they come in, if you case select like garbage and you just botch the whole case, that's not going to be good. But also if a patient comes in and they're like, you know, we want this, and you're not communicating what is reasonable or what they can expect after the case is done, they're going to be disappointed. But again, I still think lab techs do more. I think that's I think it's 60-40.
No, absolutely not. Hear me out. Okay. You get the patient back after 2 weeks. You remove their temporaries, which were a pain in the ass to make. You put on these veneers that look like shit. Patient gets mad. Send it back. Change this. Okay. You re-put on the temporaries. No charge for the appointment. 2 hours wasted. 2 weeks later, comes back. These veneers look like shit. No amount will make the patient happy until they look good. And until you have your lab tech make them look amazing by using their artistry, by using their skills, by blending the porcelain to look like natural enamel, so that when the light shines off of it, their smiles brighten. That's when the patients smile. And that's when they feel good about themselves. And no dentist can recreate that without amazing lab tech.
Maybe it's the dentist's responsibility to find the proper lab tech that takes off that percent.
It is the lab tech.
So okay, maybe here, hold on. Maybe what I can say is the dentists do more when their lab technician is shit. So they do a lot more, and they have a huge percentage because, like you said, you have to freeze the patient, you have to put on those veneers, take off those veneers, you have to deal with their emotions, with their energy, which is draining, right? But if you do your part and get the proper technician, your involvement goes down just a little bit. I still think that you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Oh, Dani.
But
we're going to be here yelling at each other all night.
I think that if you find the proper person, the proper like-minded person to work with, that's artistic, that's skillful, that knows what they're doing, your involvement, or not your involvement, because you're still very much involved. Again, we're in the lab. We don't know what's going on. We don't know the patient's emotions, the patient's mental state, what you guys go through on a daily basis. We've had patients come to the lab.
Love here. I'm loving
this. No, there's a lot of love. There's a lot of love. We've had patients come to the lab for a shade selection, and it's like, I look into their mouth and it's disgusting. Like, I can't deal, or the smell. Like, why are you eating garlic before the appointment? Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with people? Right. So, and it's like gross what I see. And I see like 1%. You guys deal with this on a daily basis. You deal with the person. We deal with the model, right? It's way less. It's still incredibly stressful profession. Okay. I'm not going to downplay it. It's long hours, it's dedication. It's you either dedicate your life to it or you're not good at it. That's it. There's no in between. If you want to be the best, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort, and you can't even rely on motivation, because motivation will, like, you have it, or some days you don't. You have to just rely on raw discipline of just, you go every day. Like, recently I decided for myself that I want to start having a work-life balance. And I have this issue where I don't come home before 8:30 p.m. Like 8:30 is my base. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start coming to the lab at 6. Like, I'm going to be at my lab at 6 a.m. So I got to be up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. And I was like, that way my 8 hours is like 2:30-ish, right? So I can like leave the lab after 2:30 technically, and I can have I'm still leaving the lab at 7, 8 o'clock. It's just I'm starting at 6 a.m. now, right? Yeah. So there's that raw discipline that you have to have, and you can't rely on motivation. But we can make mistakes. We can drop shit. We can break shit. We can experiment, because we don't, like, there's not this patient that's bleeding, in pain, sensitive, scared, shaking, anxious. Like, we don't have that live experience. So there's all of that emotional side of dentistry we don't really experience. That's why we don't know what you go through. That's why sometimes there's that lack of empathy. Maybe
APA is right, and the in-house lab is the way to go. Akil.
That's the best for communication.
That's the marriage right there.
Can I just say, I hope neither of you ever become a lawyer or represent me, because you're going to both throw me right in jail. You guys do not debate properly.
Why not?
You're just stroking each other's egos. I think there's
but that's my honest opinion, that there is that 50-50. That's just an honest opinion, because when the dentist is shit, the technician is shit. And vice versa. That's so if one of them's good and one of them is bad, there isn't that equal balance. So you guys both have to put in.
Let's just agree to disagree. The dental student is the most important person in the room.
Yeah,
he knows what he's talking about.
Let's just get this out of the way.
See, he's still in the confident but not experienced.
Oh yeah, see, we're living proof of this guy, right?
Neki and I are in the next stage of the experience, but maybe lacking a little bit of confidence. Like,
should we even go to work tomorrow? I think we'd be better in bed. I'm just going to go to sleep, and I don't think I should go into work tomorrow.
Neki and I are on the way of being the confident and experienced. Graduate dental school.
Yeah.
Wait till you have a business question, then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Fair.
With that
Fair.
being said, Dani, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Very first lab tech and a true badass. Dani Farago, thank you so much. Her Instagram is at Tooth Doctor. That's
Toothmaker.
Toothmaker. Oh yeah. See, I had hi, I'm doctor.
Oh, Freudian
Toothmaker.
slip.
Yeah, right.
At Toothmaker _
At Toothmaker _ she shows her amazing cases, and you've taught me a lot to this podcast as well. I hope you stay in touch with us, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank
Dani.
you so much for having me. See you guys later.
Welcome to the Hi, I'm Neki. Is that a sweater?
Yeah, dude, it's the hi, I'm doctor sweater. Oh, dude, I see you got yours on too. Looking sharp, bro.
Dude, where'd you get yours from?
It was super easy, man. I just went on to our website, www.hiimdoctor.com. That's HIIMDR.com.
We have a website. We must be raking in cash from selling these sweaters.
Dude, we are killing it. I mean, if that includes losing money on every single sweater that we make, I think we're doing really well.
Yeah, Neki and I are donating all proceeds, which is 0, to charity because we are losing money.
I wonder if the charity will pay us. I think we got something here, man. Let's keep on keep on losing money on every sweater.
Alrighty, guys, go check us out. hiimdoctor.com.
We'll see ya.
Neki, Mr. 15% of our profession.
I think it's true. I think lab techs are the true heroes of our industry, and they aren't. Well, lab techs and dental assistants, I would say. Dental assistants I have tons of respect for them. We can't do anything without them. I just think that dentists are given too much credit. That's just my own opinion, where we do often take all the credit, or we're given all the credit, and lab techs, especially lab techs, aren't even mentioned. They're mentioned when something goes wrong. Oh, the lab forgot to put a contact, or the lab made it too high, or the lab didn't listen to my color suggestion, because they're an easy scapegoat because they're not in the room. How easy is it to blame the person that's not there, right? Yeah. And I think that's the lab is always shit on.
It's true. I think that you just hit the nail on the head. It's because they're not in the room. Like, I feel like people will still thank the hygienist. People will still thank the assistant. People will. Yeah. Patients always thank the dentist, don't they? I don't know.
Yeah. They're always like, "You're amazing. You did this." And then if the assistant's in the room, they'll say, "Oh, you too." You know what I mean?
Good job, buddy.
I've never heard anyone, never in my entire career, has a patient said, "Neki, thank the lab.
Please thank the lab tech.
Please thank the lab.
Send them my regards."
Never. So what I started doing, or what I will do, is I'll take a picture and I'll say, "Hey, I'm going to send this to my lab tech," and I'll just take a selfie with them.
Oh,
do you know what I mean? And then I'll text that to my lab tab, and I'll say, "Hey, homie, my patient loves their new implant crown."
That's a really stellar idea. Is that commonplace, or is that?
I don't know what other people do, man. That's just what I do. Yeah. I've been working with the same lab. Oh yeah. That was another thing we didn't really talk about, is consistency working with someone. Like, if I just send Dani a case today and then I'll send her a case in 6 months, it's like going to a new barber. Like, your first haircut sucks. And then as you go to them more and more, you're like, oh, okay, now you get to have a relationship because you know how they like things, right?
Yeah. It's true. Dentists do get too much credit, because I think that, at the end of the day, you can't, but I also think you can't lab techs can't do their job without dentists, which inherently has a ton of value, and dentists can't do their job without lab techs. So It's like, I feel like there's that delicate balance.
But that's what I'm saying. That in-house lab idea, that I think that's what's going to take over all these aesthetic clinics. And we're going to have another cosmetic dentist on out of this dude from Calgary. We'll talk about that later. But he doesn't have his own in-house lab tech, but he works with the same lab tech for every single case he does. And he does only cosmetic cases. So I really think the time of the lab tech is coming. And I can honestly see a dentist and a lab tech opening up places together. And I'm actually surprised that people like Dani haven't been scouted by maybe a prosthodontist or a very busy cosmetic dentist to just be their lab tech. Do you know what I mean?
You're right.
You would get everything's in-house. They would be right there during the prep appointment. Like that is so important. Hey, have like reduce a little bit more here. I need to add more porcelain here. Let's check it out. Like it's so wicked to have a lab tech with you when you go to do those aesthetic cases, because there's often less chances that you'll need another impression because they're right there to see it, or you'll need to reduce more because they're right there. So I fully agree, if you're going to go head first into cosmetics, to have a really close relationship with that lab tech, and maybe have an in-house lab tech too.
Are you familiar with no prep veneers?
Yep.
Are they truly, is a stupid question, are they truly no prep?
I am not the dude to ask. Does it involve taking out the tooth and then putting it back in? Well, yeah, I've done a couple no prep veneers in my career. In my early career, they're still on.
My feet up for the after show.
Yeah. But like another dentist in our office, they did a bunch of no prep veneers, and they all ended up very bulky. And because you need to, if you're not prepping the tooth,
where's the space?
Like you're adding bulk, you know what I mean? And so if your smile isn't made to add bulk, or if there's no space to add bulk, they end up just looking like chiclets. So I think for the right people they work, but for other people they don't. It's all a case by case selection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like in the environment of like no prep veneers, like when those are a thing and they're reliable and they don't look like shit, I think we're kind of cutting out the dentist, and then it's just the lab tech.
It's just
right?
the lab tech. Yeah, because like still needs someone to cement them, right?
Yeah, how hard is that?
Man, cementing veneers.
Again,
is
I've never done a crown. I've never done a crown. I've never done a veneer.
Man, I think the cementation appointment is the most difficult part of the whole process if you have no idea what you're doing. If it's like something you just dabble in, it's like anything. You take out wisdom teeth once a year, man, that's going to be a shitty 3-hour appointment. Or you take out 10 sets a day, and you're like, boom, that's a 15-minute appointment. So you always want to go to the person with the most amount of reps, right?
Yeah, it's true. So. It's true. Do you ever think of dentistry in like this sci-fi way? I remember seeing, you're familiar with Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
So like Kickstarter had this toothbrush, and I remember seeing this in my second year of undergrad at Western. They had this toothbrush that was like, it was this device that basically sits in your mouth. And the theory behind it was, okay, you spend 2 minutes brushing your teeth, right? So, and you have 32 teeth. So that's 60, 120 seconds divided by, how many teeth do we have? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Guy. He's going to write board exams next year.
So it's 3.75 seconds a tooth, right? So if you just leave this device that simultaneously brushes all 32 teeth at the same time, you only really need to brush for 3.7 seconds. So it's like okay, you're following me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because like each tooth only gets that amount of time.
Totally.
So imagine this. Imagine you could have like this device that just like sits in your mouth. It has the drill and everything. It's supervised by like, a hygienist or someone that, knows what they're doing. And it just lays in your mouth and it cuts the tooth and you're good to go. Because what do we do that's like so proprietary, right? It's like we're just following dimensions, right? It's like, okay.
So now you agree with me. It's more the lab tech than just the dentist.
No, well, okay. Now I shouldn't be the lawyer.
Oh, yeah. See?
But like, I don't know if you ever think of that in dentistry where you're kind of like, this like new sci-fi, version of it where everything's just done for you. It's all computerized. No,
I hear what you're saying. Like this whole toothbrush thing. I don't know why people always want to reinvent the toothbrush, but that seems like such a I think everyone's thought of an idea of, hey, why not have 600 bristles in your mouth and you just put in like a a piece and it brushes all your teeth at once. Like everyone's had that idea, and yet it's never caught traction because everyone's mouth shape is different. And I don't know, man. 3 seconds brushing your teeth, your breath still stinks like shit too, man.
I
So
actually just saw, like, I saw this lady who got funding for a company, and it was, I'm laughing at it. Watch it be worth $1 billion. It was just a toothbrush that was just super fat. It was just super
I saw that
thick.
too, man.
She got like $10 million or something of
For
funding.
real?
Yeah, like it was legitimate funding. She got funded for this idea. And it's just like a thick toothbrush. It's called like Thicky or something. I don't know what it's called. But it was like a very like weird name. And it was just like a big toothbrush. I'm like reading into it. I'm like, what is this thing? And it's just like, so if that can make it, like imagine what this idea can do.
Well, I personally, I think it's funny right now looking at like what Oral-B is doing. Like they're coming out with these $400 toothbrushes that are identical to a $30 toothbrush, but except it has Bluetooth connectivity. I've yet to see a reason why I need to have my phone connected to my damn toothbrush. Like it's such crap. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't care if they hear me saying this, but like, come on, give me a break. Who's gonna be $400 for a toothbrush? You know, you gave one to me for free. I'm grateful. It's a black toothbrush. It looks cool, but $400, like it doesn't make any sense to me. But maybe there is an idea where you get, 10 bristles on there or 10 heads on each side, and you just, I don't know, man. But we got to get more creative for $400.
Well, you spend how much time brushing your teeth? How much time do you genuinely spend brushing
genuinely
your teeth?
Probably like a minute.
A minute?
Yeah.
Oh,
electric toothbrush. No, oh man, I'm the first one to say I should floss more. I love it when my patients say, well, how much do you floss? And I'm like, man, if we floss the same amount, we're both in good shape. And I'm like, dude, if we both floss twice a week, man, we are killing it. And I just think it's crap. Like, yeah, of course you can get the dentist out there that flosses every day, but we all know most of us don't. And right. Like, let's just
got nothing better to do with your 1 minute.
Yeah. I'm so sick of everyone in our profession, like talking down to our patients, saying you should be brushing twice a day, which of course we all should do, which we all do as dentists, but like no one's flossing every single day of the week. No one's not eating candy. No one's not drinking Red Bull. Like, don't give me that crap. And so why can't we just be real? I'll be like, listen, I eat as much candy as you do. I drank 2 Red Bulls today, but the only difference is I washed my mouth out with water after a time, every time I did all those things. And so you can too. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I guess I'm not a real doctor, right?
Yeah. Well, I have a solution for you. If you don't have time, I know a toothbrush that can work in your whole mouth in 3.7 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Because brushing your teeth, it adds up. Like what, 4 minutes a day times 365.
I'm not playing this game with you, man. Come on.
It adds up.
Yet you'll watch Love is Blind on Netflix, 7 episodes back to back to back, and not even think twice.
Have you ever done the calculation where you, like, how much do you sleep? Like, how many hours a night do you sleep?
I try to get 7.5, 8.
Okay. So I don't sleep I never used to sleep very much. I used to sleep like 6 hours. I used to sleep 5.5. Now I sleep like 6.5 on a good day. So I used to have a roommate, Niam, and Niam used to be literally nocturnal. Like he could not sleep. He would every day, like I would be, leaving the house. I'd be like, all right, man, ready to go. Like, what you're up early? It's just like, oh, you haven't even fallen asleep yet. He's like eating cereal and like, he's like, what are you doing, man? But then he would sleep, or like he would fall asleep at like 2, but then sleep to like 1. This guy loved his sleep. Super happy guy. So I'm not saying it's not working.
2 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yeah. Like he would just have the most erratic sleep schedules. And it was awesome because we would say like, no one's ever breaking into our place because, like I'm up like all day and then he's up all night. So it worked. But if you ever do the calculation of if you sleep less, like 1 hour less a night, how many years that adds up to in the course of your lifetime. I don't think it's a good idea to sleep less, but I think just that idea of, you do one little thing a day, how much it actually translates to in the grand scheme of your life. And I think at one point I like told him like, dude, I'm living like 5 extra waking hours than you, or 5 extra waking years than you over the course of my lifetime. It was nuts. You should do the calculation once. Actually, don't do that because you're gonna go yank a wisdom and you're gonna pull the wrong tooth. You know, Akil told me not to sleep.
Yeah.
He told me I'd get more done in the day.
Just what I need. More shit to do, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a good episode though. I liked I like hearing a lab tech's point of view, and I think it's cool that there's more females coming through George Brown, the lab tech college there in Ontario, and I don't know. I think it speaks well to our profession, because there's a lot of aesthetically driven people now coming through the ranks, and not just the $125 crowns production numbers people. You actually have people that care, and it's a career, not just a money making race to the bottom.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. And I think that, shift of, classes being mostly female now is more and more prevalent in, all throughout healthcare. At least I know all throughout healthcare. I think U of T dentistry is, if I'm not mistaken, their first year class is more than 65% female. U of T med is like 65% female. So things are changing.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of started off the podcast saying it's unusual you see a white female being the lab tech, right? A white female born in Canada being a lab tech. So things are changing, and it'll be interesting to see how that, changes the profession as a whole, because, she's even mentioning, and you even said, it's kind of going to be the era of the lab techs, and, having new ideas, having new blood, having a fresh pair of eyes looking at this profession and saying, wait a minute, we're actually doing, she said 50%. I think she thinks more, but it's, like we're actually doing like 80% of the work here, but getting none of the recognition. Like we can't even see the patient smile after we've done all this work. So I think things are going to change.
I think we're onto something here, man.
Yeah.
I think we're on something. But anyways, I hope you all love the episode, and thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to check out hiimdoctor.com. That's HIIMDR.com for your Hi, I'm Doctor swag.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Take care. See you next week.